The older SUMIF, COUNTIF, AVERAGEIF, etc. without the S at the end, these older functions have some risks. What we can do is we can go to the Excel Analyzer report and we can find all the SUMIF. Now notice I'm not doing the SUMIFS at the moment. SUMIF. And when I click on it, it will bring up a list of all the SUMIF formulas in the spreadsheet, and then we can look through them for the risky aspects. The old SUMIF, excluding the S, so only a SUMIF, COUNTIF, AVERAGEIF, had a unique problem. So you'll see we've identified the SUMIF. When we look here, when you look at the sum range and the criteria range, they should be the same. So you can see that goes from row 10 to row 14. That goes 10 to 14. If we scroll down, if we look at this one here, you'll notice it goes from 24 to 36, but the other range goes from 24 to 48. Now with the older functions, this was actually allowed. In the new function, SUMIFS, it actually won't allow you to do that. It has to be the same size. But in this case, it allowed it. And those are high risk. So if we go look at them and we go trace formulas, you'll see that they mismatched. And the way Excel handled it was to, once it reaches the end of this area, it actually goes back up and redoes it, which means that these numbers are incorrect. So a SUMIF, COUNTIF, AVERAGEIF, generally speaking, whether it's columns or rows, it should be the same size. And there is a risk that this slips through. Generally speaking, with a SUMIF, COUNTIF, AVERAGEIF, anywhere that's looking at a table, we expect dollar signs to be on the references because it's rare that you want it to move around where it's looking. So in this SUMIF, you'll see that the criteria range has got dollar signs on the letters and the numbers. But if I look at the sum range, you'll see it's only on the numbers. So that exhibits a risk. Let's go look at it. So you'll see we've got a SUMIF and a quick test. I'm going to go tracing formulas. You'll see it seems to be looking at that area. And as I go across now, I'm not going to go straight. I'm going to go down and across. So notice that's actually making sense. So it seems to be looking continually here. And then what it's summing moves across. So that one actually doesn't look too bad. So what we're going to do is go back to the formula report. So there's that. And let's go see if we can find another one. You'll see that seems to have dollar signs everywhere. Here, can you see this is now looking at another sheet. But notice no dollar signs on the sum and criteria ranges. So that's a risk. And we can see that there's 20 copies of it. So that is a risk, especially when no dollar signs are used. So let's go look at it. So here's the formula. For this one, I'm just going to go back. You'll see there's an option here to go to the original sheet. So I'm just going to look at the original sheet. I can see there's a SUMIF. That's where it's looking. So let's look at this one. I'm going to use my trace precedence button. And let's go look at what it's looking at. And you can see it's highlighted the area and that looks fine. Now just to get back to where I was, I'm going to push F5 enter and it takes us straight back there. But keep in mind that it's very rare that people make a problem in the first formula they build. So we shouldn't be looking here ever. We should go a little bit lower. So let's go to that one there. And now let's do a trace precedent and let's look at what the criteria range is. And you'll notice because there's no dollar signs, it seems to have missed the top and it's including some blanks. Again, F5 enter. Let's go look at what the sum range was doing. So the same thing you can see, and that looks like an error. It seems to have missed some data and it's including some nonsense data down here. So I'm just going to go F5 enter. So these are high risk and need to be investigated. With a SUMIF, COUNTIF, AVERAGEIF, it is important as well to consider what is being looked up. So we can see this is the criteria range, that's the sum range, and this is what's going to decide whether we add it or not. So the reason this is a risk with SUMIF in particular is because unlike VLOOKUP, where if it can't find it, it gives an error message, with a SUMIF, if it can't find it, it just brings back 0. So the result is 0. So if we go look at this, so you'll see here, we've got a SUMIF. Let's see where it's looking. So it seems to be looking there. And when I highlight them all, so in this case, it actually doesn't look like a problem. Basically, it's always looking over there. Where it becomes a risk is if this was copied to the right, what is it looking at? Is it looking up the proper number, or have we accidentally forgotten or included dollar signs? And as a result, it's not actually seeing the number we're looking for. A risk with a SUMIF COUNTIF AVERAGEIF is what is the criteria used. So I'm just going to change this. Let's go look at see if there's any COUNTIF here. So there's a COUNTIF. When I click on it, Excel Analyzer gets us the COUNTIF. And you'll see we can now look through the list. And you'll see we've got some COUNTIF and we can look at them. Notice one of the COUNTIF has as its criteria not a reference to a cell or a number, but it actually has a logical test. So what this is saying is COUNTIF, and because of the inverted commas, is less than 0. So when I click and go look at it, you'll see that looks fine. Go trace formulas, so that's fine. So the risk here is it's looking at the right place. It looks like it's saying less than 0. The question here is because it's a logical test, perhaps that should say less than and equal to 0, or should say bigger than. So when you have got special criteria in here, you just need to be careful that it is using the correct logical function.